Hi, my name is Aaron Hyde with High Performance Sports and Training Solutions. I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist as well as a certified exercise physiologist. So today is going to be part two of our lower body mobility video series. And so today we're going to be talking about the hip. We're going to go over some stretches as well as some hip mobility exercises. So just as a refresher, when we're talking about mobility, we're talking about the range of motion that I have at a joint. All right, the range of motion that I have at that joint, as well as the ability to actively control that range of motion. So we talked about the ankle, how the ankle is a mobile joint. It should be able to move pretty freely, and there's a bunch of different ranges of motion that I have at the ankle and should have at the ankle. When I lose that range of motion, a lot of times it can lead to pain and movement dysfunctions and different things like that that can affect the quality of life and just my ability to do certain tasks and even certain exercises. And so today we're going to talk about the hip. So the hip is the other mobile joint at the lower body. And so when you think about the hip can do a lot of different things. It can go forward, backwards, sideways. Here we can do turn it in, turn it out. So it's what would be considered a relatively mobile joint. And so we want to make sure that we always have that ability to move the hip in a bunch of different directions. And a lot of times for people who experience back pain, they lose the ability to have good movement and free range of motion at their hip joint. And so what happens is their low back tries to compensate for that lack of range of motion when they're doing certain movements and different things like this. Their back is kind of taking on too much stress. So we want to actually make sure we maintain our hip mobility. So the first thing I'm going to show you is going to be a seated hip stretch. So in order to increase that range of motion, I can do stretches and mobility type of exercises. The stretches are a little bit more passive, where I'm just holding a position and pushing that muscle to its limits. Obviously, when I stretch, I want to have slight discomfort, but not a lot of discomfort to where it causes pain. And then I have the mobility exercises where I'm actively controlling that range of motion. So for the first one, the seated hip stretch. You can take your foot, you're going to place it right here. And from right here, for some people, they're going to feel this stretch immediately. I'm going to demonstrate it kind of this way a little bit too. They'll feel this stretch immediately. As soon as they start, they're going to feel it. Oh, I can almost feel a little bit right now in my hip. If you don't feel it in your hip, you can take this hand, press this knee down just a little bit. You want to apply a lot of pressure, just enough. And then you can also lean forward just a little bit to get a little bit deeper into that stretch. Now when I'm stretching, I want to really focus on controlling my breathing. I can exhale and relax. I want to release tension while I'm stretching. I don't want to hold my breath while I'm stretching. I want to relax, and sometimes when I exhale long enough, I can go a little bit deeper into that stretch. So I want to hold this stretch for at least 30 seconds to a minute. Again, you can perform this stretch and any stretch for even longer than a minute if need be. The next one I want to go to is going to be the side lunge stretch. Now you can perform this stretch sitting down and standing up. I'm going to show you sitting down. It's kind of challenging to do sitting down, but I'm going to demonstrate it sitting down and also show you how to do it standing up. So basically what this is, you want to get up on the edge of a chair. I'm gonna start with my feet just like this. Take one leg. I'm gonna stretch this one out. I stretch it out right here to where I'm nice and long. So what we're doing is stretching the inner part of our thigh right here, all right? That growing area, the inner thigh. So I want to basically get this leg nice and long, and I'm leaning a little bit, just a little bit forward, but I'm getting a nice long stretch right here. I don't want to have the knee bent and try to do this stretch. If I can get that leg nice and long, I'm going to stretch out this muscle right here. So if I ever have discomfort or tightness in my inner thigh, this is a great stretch to be able to do. Alright, so stretch this out. Again, same thing. You will hold it for the same time duration, at least 30 seconds, maybe to a minute. Switch and do the other side. You really only have to do one, maybe two sets of these stretches, depending on how tight you feel. So that's doing it sitting down, standing up, same concept. I'm just leaning a little bit right here. Again, control my breathing. As I exhale, I may get a little bit deeper. You can use a chair or anything like that to kind of help you balance yourself, or to take some of the resistance off of this leg. some of the weight off of this leg and use it like a chair or a countertop or anything like that. So that's the side lunge stretch. And then the last one I'm going to show you is the hip flexor stretch. Now this one's kind of challenging to do sitting down. I'm going to demonstrate it sitting down, but it can be challenging to do, and I'm going to demonstrate it standing up. So with this one, the hip flexor is this muscle right here. So if you ever feel tightness in the front of your hip, this will be a stretch that you want to do. So I'm kind of sitting on the edge of this chair. I can hold this chair for support to kind of keep me up and take some of the weight off of my down leg. But I want to get nice and long right here, and I want to squeeze my glutes and kind of tuck my hips forward. And so I'm squeezing my glutes, I'm referring to your butt muscle. Squeeze that and tuck my hips forward. And what this is doing is creating a stretch in my hip flexors, which is right here on the front of the thigh. But I got to get nice and long. I don't want to arch my back and I don't want to lean forward. Just get nice and long right there and hold that stretch. But you will probably also feel this across your thigh, just because you have a muscle that goes from your hip past your knee. So when I hold this position, I'll feel a little bit of tension in the front of the thigh as well. So that's not uncommon. But I want to really focus on this position, this spot right here where my hip flexors are located. All right, that's how to do it sitting down. Now standing up, basically the same thing. I don't want to do, there's a kneeling version that you can do that works really well, but you know, for the sake of everybody, I want to show something that most people can be able to do, which is just going to be standing up. So I'm going with a staggered stance. This leg is nice and long. I'm going to push that hip forward and down. Again, I don't want to arch my back. I don't want to hunch forward. I want to try to keep nice, proper alignment. Again, I hold onto a wall or a chair and hold that stretch. And I keep going down into it until I feel a good stretch right there. So those are a few stretches that will help loosen up your hip area if you feel like you have really tight hips. And sometimes, again, if you experience back pain, you may want to try out some stretches as well as some mobility exercises for your hips. The last two exercises I'm going to show you is the hip hurdler and semicircles. So these are the mobility exercises. This is where I'm actively controlling and working the range of motion that I have or should have at my hip. So for the hip hurdler, I'm treating this kettlebell as like it's a hurdle. I'm going to lift my leg up as high as I can, open up, place it behind it, lift it back up just like it's a hurdle, and bring it back over, okay? Now, this is a great exercise to do if you have a chair. So I'll put that chair on this side. Sometimes you can even put it in front of you. But I'll use this just for additional balance. I want to stay facing forward and just focus on this movement right here at my hip. I don't want to twist and turn. And I'll perform, again, about 10 to 12 reps. Switch to the other side and do the exact same thing. And then the last one is the semicircles. So this one is fairly simple. Again, you can use the chair for balance if you need it. I take my foot straight out in front of me, and I'm just going to make a circle behind me with my foot in the air as far as I can go while I'm still facing forward, and bring it back across to the front. And again, I don't want to twist and turn because I'm really just focusing on the motion at my hip. So this is called a semicircle. And same thing, you'll do 10 to 12 repetitions of that exercise. So that covers some exercises that you can do to work on your hips, to keep your hips nice, flexible, mobile, to work the range of motion that you have at your hips so you can enjoy life and not have a bunch of different like pain or stiffness or tightness. All right, so stay tuned. I'll be going over some more mobility exercises and I'll be touching on the upper body.